Blood dripped across the broken compass. He vowed she'd live. Kai pressed a hand to the gunshot wound in his side, hot blood seeping through his fingers. The pain was bone deep, but he kept his eyes on the terrified girl beside him. He would die before letting the outlaws take her. A gunshot cracked the night. Wood splintered and flew. The acrid smell of gunpowder and kerosene choked the air as smoke crept under the door. Outside, boots crushed dry sagebrush. A gravel-voiced man bellowed, "No more running," Abby whimpered, hands shaking on the empty rifle in her lap. Shattered glass glittered at their feet, but 6 earlier. Dusty red canyon, late afternoon. Abigail. Abby. Moran clutched her father's rifle as she stumbled through sagebrush. Her lungs burned. She'd been running since the ambush. The sun hung low, turning the rocks blood orange. She could still smell gunpowder and smoke on her clothes from the attack that killed her kin. Up ahead, a lone rider emerged atop a ridge. Abby's heart stuttered. Was it one of them? She ducked behind a boulder, sweat and fear mingling on her skin. The figure dismounted and walked slowly, leading his horse. In the amber light, she glimpsed a bronze-skinned Navajo man in a scout's jacket. Not a bandit, perhaps. But terror drowned her reason. Her fingers trembled on the rifle's trigger. The stranger stepped closer, scanning the rocks. A crow cawed overhead, and Abby flinched. She thought of the brutal gang trailing her and bit her lip. I can't take chances. She rose, rifle aimed. The crack of her shot shattered the canyon silence. The recoil knocked her back a step. The man groaned and crumpled to one knee, clutching his side. His horse bolted, hoofbeats echoing. Abby peered out and saw blood darkening his shirt. He wasn't firing back. His revolver stayed holstered. He lifted his face, not angry, just pained and confused. He was no outlaw. Realization hit Abby like a kick to the gut. Oh, God. I'm sorry, she gasped, dropping the rifle and rushing forward. The young man collapsed onto his side in the red dirt. Abby knelt, desert dust stinging her eyes and throat. She pressed her shaking hands over his wound, trying to stanch the bleeding. Hot blood soaked through her fingers. A distant gunshot boomed somewhere behind Abby, jolting her heart. The gang was still on her trail, maybe a mile back and closing. The wounded stranger grabbed Abby's wrist with surprising strength. "They, after you," he rasped. She nodded frantically, tears in her eyes. He grimaced, forcing himself upright. "Then run," he panted. But Abby shook her head. She slung his arm over her shoulders, hauling him up with adrenaline-fueled strength. "We have to move now, or we're both dead," she urged. The sound of whooping carried on the wind behind them. Abby steadied the man. He winced, but managed to step. Together, they staggered into the deepening dusk, leaving droplets of blood on the sand. Open desert under a darkening sky. Abby half-dragged the Navajo scout, whose name she'd learned was Kai, across the hardpan. Twilight painted the clouds purple. Crickets chirped in the sagebrush, their song nearly drowned by Abby's ragged breaths and Kai's pained gasps. "Water?" Kai groaned, sweat beading on his brow. Abby's throat was parched too, tongue thick with dust. The metallic tang of his blood hung in the dry air. She scanned the horizon and spotted the silhouette of an old Spanish mission ahead, its adobe walls crumbling but promising shelter, and a well. As night fell, they reached the abandoned mission's courtyard. A wooden cross lay broken in the weeds. Abby eased Kai down beside the stone well. Her legs quivered with exhaustion. She grabbed the rope and lowered the bucket. The pulley squealed loudly in the silent night. Too loud. Kai's eyes snapped open in alarm. Before Abby could react, a rough voice echoed outside the mission wall. Over here. Her blood ran cold. Torchlight flickered beyond the sagging gate as 3 outlaw riders emerged from the gloom. Abby's heart thundered. They must have seen or heard us. Kai grit his teeth and pushed to his feet, drawing his revolver. Abby helped him limp into the mission church just as a gunshot rang out. The well's stone lip exploded in shards behind them. Abby stifled a scream as they stumbled over the fallen door and into darkness. Inside, the smell of dust and old incense clung to the air. Abby barred the wooden door with a toppled beam. Outside, boots thudded on dirt. Clayton Nash and his men had arrived. Their laughter sent shivers up her spine. "Come on out, girl," Clayton called. "We know you're in there." Abby tugged Kai behind a pew. She frantically checked her satchel and found a stick of dynamite, her father's last resort for stubborn tree stumps. Hands shaking, she whispered, "Stay down." Kai nodded, breathing hard. With a tinder from her pocket, Abby lit the dynamite's short fuse. She tossed it through a shattered window toward the men. "Fire in the hole!" she cried, ducking. A thunderous boom split the night. The ground trembled. Dust rained from the rafters. Abby's ears rang as she peeked out. Flames from the blast illuminated two horses rearing and men diving for cover. The acrid smell of burning sagebrush and gunpowder filled her nose. For a moment, silence. Abby's pulse pounded in her ears. Had she scared them off? A furious shout answered, "You little witch!" Coughing and scraping footsteps drew nearer, silhouettes regrouping outside. At least two still stood, and they were enraged. The explosion had bought them only seconds, and those seconds were already up. Interior of the ruined mission, night. Smoke from the blast mingled with shadows as Abby helped Kai prop himself against the altar. A door behind it creaked open, and an elderly trapper with a rifle stepped out of the sacristy. Abby raised her empty revolver reflexively. "Easy," the old man rasped, lowering his shotgun when he saw Kai. Deep lines of relief crossed his weathered face. "Kai, son, what hell's chased you here?" Kai managed a weak grin. "Jonas, good timing," he said through clenched teeth. Jonas, an old mentor, hurried to Kai's side, bringing with him the smell of tobacco and sweat. A second figure, young and wide-eyed, hovered behind Jonas. It was Deputy Mark Evans from the nearest town, clutching a Colt pistol. "Outlaws surrounded us," he stammered, face ashen. "He must have fled here too." Abby pointed to the barricaded door. "Clayton Nash and his gang," she whispered. "They killed my family. Now they're after me." Jonas cursed under his breath and peered through a bullet hole in the wall. "I count 5, maybe more." Outside, Clayton's deep voice growled orders. "Spread out. Jack, take the back." Kai sucked in a breath at that name. Jack Carver, once his closest friend, now a bitter enemy, was here. His past had literally come back to haunt him. He exchanged a grim look with Jonas, who nodded. The old man understood. Deputy Mark wiped sweat from his brow. "They'll burn us out or worse," he whispered, voice quivering. "No help's comin' till morning. We gotta hold until dawn somehow." Abby realized no posse would arrive in time. They were on their own till sunrise. Kai reloaded his revolver with shaky hands. Only a few bullets left. Jonas checked his shotgun. 2 shells. Abby clutched her father's Winchester, 1 round chambered. Mark had maybe 3 shots. In the flicker of Jonas's lantern, their frightened faces understood the odds. Abby tightened a fresh rag around Kai's bleeding waist. Outside, footsteps crunching on gravel set every nerve on edge. A sharp scent of kerosene wafted in. Were the outlaws going to burn them alive? Jonas whispered a quick prayer. Kai squared his shoulders despite the pain. A thin wooden door was all that separated them from the killers outside. Suddenly, the door rattled with a heavy kick. Wood cracked. Everyone jumped. Abby swallowed, finger on her rifle's trigger. They had seconds to act. "Front and center," Clayton roared. The next kick burst the door open. Firelight and hateful eyes shining through. The final battle was about to begin. Mission courtyard, midnight. Gunfire erupted in a chaos of light and sound. Clayton's outlaws blasted through the doorway, bullets whining off stone. Kai and Jonas answered with a fury of their own. Muzzle flashes lit the dark chapel as Abby fired her lone rifle shot at a thug climbing through a window. He yelped and fell back into the dirt. Kai dropped behind a pew, panting from exertion. The thunder of gunfire was deafening inside, and the sharp stink of burning powder made Abby's eyes water. An outlaw screamed, "I'm hit!" A micro-victory. But the onslaught continued. With a crash, a flaming bottle sailed through the blown-open doorway. It smashed against a wall, showering the room in burning liquor. With a whoosh, orange flames leapt up dry curtains and wooden beams. In seconds, the mission interior was ablaze. "Fire!" Mark yelled, retreating from the heat. Abby's heart seized. Smoke curled thick and black toward the rafters. The crackle of burning wood mingled with the gunshots outside. Jonas broke cover to stomp out flames crawling across the floor. A shot rang out from the darkness. Jonas jolted, a red burst blooming on his shoulder. He collapsed with a pained grunt, shotgun skittering from his grip. "Jonas!" Abby cried. Kai lunged to drag the old man back behind the altar, coughing as smoke stung his lungs. Jonas wheezed, pressing a hand to his wound. He was alive, but barely. Outside, Clayton's men whooped in triumph. "Burn, you rats!" one hollered. Through the heat haze, Abby saw Clayton Nash limping into view, a cruel grin on his face. Clayton leveled his revolver at the doorway. "Jack, cover me!" he barked. Then, to Kai inside, he snarled, "Come out, Blackhawk. I know you're in there." The name Blackhawk, Kai's old outlaw alias, rang out like a curse. Kai's jaw tightened. He had tried to bury that name with his past. Hearing it now ignited a fierce resolve in his eyes. Flames roared higher, chewing through the roof timbers. They couldn't stay. They'd be shot or burned alive. Kai gently laid Jonas against the altar. The old trapper gripped his arm, blood on his hand. "Remember who you are," Jonas rasped, a feeble plea to stay honorable. Kai swallowed hard and nodded. Holstering his nearly empty gun, Kai stood and walked straight out the charred doorway, backlit by the inferno. Abby gasped and reached for him, but he had already stepped into the open. "Clayton," Kai shouted into the smoky night, "I'm here." The gunfire paused. In the courtyard, Clayton's eyes gleamed at the sight of his prey. He had waited years for this traitor to resurface. Kai marched forward, legs shaking but will unbroken. His silhouette faced Clayton amid swirling embers. Behind him, Abby hovered at the doorway, coughing on smoke and dread. Clayton sneered and grabbed Abby by the arm, yanking her into the open. She cried out as he dragged her in front of him like a human shield. Her face was smeared with soot, eyes wide with fear. Clayton pressed the cold barrel of his Colt to Abby's temple and pulled back the hammer. "Drop your iron, Blackhawk," he spat, "or the girl dies now." Kai froze, blood pounding in his ears louder than the flames. Abby trembled, the gun hard against her head. Meeting her terrified eyes, Kai slowly let his revolver fall. It landed in the dirt with a dull thud. In the courtyard, a shotgun blast suddenly boomed. Clayton jolted forward, eyes bulging in shock. Jonas had fired from inside. Clayton staggered, then toppled face first into the dust, dead before he hit the ground. Abby wrenched free and stumbled away from the outlaw's twitching body. A furious scream tore through the night. "No!" Jack Carver burst from the shadows, revolver raised. In the flickering firelight, his gaunt face twisted with rage. Kai dived behind a fallen mission bell just as Jack opened fire. Jack's bullet pinged off the bell's iron flank. Sparks flew. Kai clenched his teeth. A fragment grazed his cheek, but he held his cover. Jack stalked forward, pistol aimed steady at the bell. The smell of gunpowder and Jack's tobacco breath hung heavy in the air. "You think I forgot, Kai," Jack snarled, voice raw. "You left me to hang back then." Behind the bell, Kai's heart thudded. He had one bullet left in his own gun, lying out of reach. Smoke and pain blurred his thoughts. "Jack, I know," Kai called hoarsely. "I'm sorry. Sorry." Jack spat, edging nearer. "Sorry won't save you now." He thumbed back his revolver's hammer, hand trembling with hatred and triumph. Kai braced himself. Jack leveled his pistol for the killing shot, finger whitening on the trigger. Would the next heartbeat be Kai's last? Mission yard, dawn breaking. As Jack took aim, Abby crept behind him, silent as a shadow. Jack's attention was locked on Kai. With a cry, Abby swung a jagged rock and smashed it into Jack's back. He howled, stumbling forward. His gun discharged into the dirt, wide of its mark. Kai seized the moment. He rolled out from behind the bell, scooping up his fallen revolver. With lightning reflexes, he fired his final round. The shot struck Jack square in the chest. Jack froze, mouth open in a silent gasp. The revolver slipped from his grasp. He swayed on his feet, eyes meeting Kai's across the smoldering yard. For an instant, Jack looked like a tired, broken man freed from a long torment. Then he crumpled to his knees and fell face down in the dust, motionless. For a few seconds, neither Abby nor Kai moved. Only the crackle of dying flames and the distant crow of a rooster greeted the dawn. It was over. The gang was finished. Kai exhaled a shuddering breath and dropped his empty gun. His knees buckled. Abby rushed to him, catching him under the arms as he sagged. "Kai!" she cried. He managed a faint smile, eyes heavy with exhaustion. "You're safe. That's what matters," he murmured. The first rays of sun broke over the horizon, painting the smoke-laced sky in pink and gold. Abby's tears fell onto his blood-stained shirt as she cradled him. Around them lay the toll of the night. Clayton and Jack lifeless, the other outlaws fled or dead, the mission a charred ruin. Deputy Mark stepped forward, face smudged with soot, and gave a shaky nod. Everyone alive on their side would pull through. Kai's head lolled against Abby's shoulder. The adrenaline that had carried him this far ebbed away, leaving only pain and darkness. Abby pressed her hand to his cheek. "Stay with me," she pleaded, voice breaking. Kai tried to reply, but the world tilted. His vision narrowed to a pinprick of light, the dawn sun glinting over Abby's shoulder. Then even that winked out. He went limp in her arms, oblivious to her desperate voice calling his name. High desert, sunrise, golden light spread across the mesa as Kai's eyes fluttered open. He found himself lying on a blanket a safe distance from the smoking ruins of the mission. The air was cool and carried the clean scent of sage after a desert rain. Abby knelt beside him, changing the bandage on his side. Relief flooded her so vividly that a sob escaped her. "You stubborn man," she whispered, smiling through tears. Kai gave a weak chuckle that turned into a wince. The pain told him he was alive. Jonas sat nearby, arm in a crude sling. He was pale but conscious, a fond smile hidden in his grizzled beard as he watched Abby fuss over Kai. Deputy Mark stood a few yards off, hat in hand, scanning the horizon for any last threats. All was quiet now. Kai struggled to sit up. Abby quickly slipped an arm behind him to help. He leaned against her, grateful for her strength. The morning sun lit her face, and for a moment Kai simply gazed, astonished that they were both still here to greet the day. "Thank you," Abby said softly, eyes on his. In those two words lay everything: gratitude, grief, and the beginnings of hope. Kai lifted a trembling hand to brush a strand of hair from her cheek. "I'm sorry I couldn't save your family," he said, his voice cracked with empathy. Abby bit her lip, a tear rolling down. "You saved me. That's more than I ever expected." She squeezed his hand, letting the warmth speak for her gratitude. Nearby, Clayton's riderless horse nickered and pawed at the ground. Mark cleared his throat gently. "I'll ride to town and bring back a wagon and a doctor," he said. He glanced at Abby kindly. "Miss, do you have anywhere you want to go?" Abby opened her mouth, but no answer came. Her home and family were gone. She looked to the ground, eyes stinging, and slowly shook her head. Kai exchanged a glance with Jonas, who gave him an encouraging nod. Summoning courage, Kai reached for Abby's hand. "Come with me," he said quietly. "I have a little cabin up north. We could—" His voice caught, but he steadied it. "We could start fresh, together." Abby's breath hitched. For the first time in days, a tentative smile curved her lips. "I'd like that," she answered, cheeks wet with tears that were no longer solely of sorrow. Jonas chuckled softly. "I reckon you two have earned a bit of peace." The old mentor's eyes shone with pride as he turned to Mark. "Go on, deputy. We'll be fine." With promises to return soon, Mark mounted up and rode off toward town, leaving the three alone under the brightening sky. Slowly, Abby helped Kai over to the stout roan horse. Kai groaned, but managed to pull himself into the saddle. Then he extended a hand down to Abby. She took one last look at the ashes of the mission and the new graves that would need tending, then grasped Kai's hand. He hoisted her up to sit in front of him, her light frame snug against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her securely, the way a protector and a partner would. Abby felt safe for the first time in forever. She placed a gentle hand on Kai's scarred one. The old trapper raised his good arm in farewell, standing amidst the rubble with the dawn at his back. Abby leaned into Kai, and he tightened his arm around her. His wounds throbbed with each step of the horse, but he welcomed the pain. It meant he had lived. They had both survived and found something worth living for. He looked down at the young woman in his arms, and a swell of emotion closed his throat for a moment. The desert stretched wide and golden ahead of them, an open road to whatever came next. "Let's go home," Kai murmured near Abby's ear. His voice was gentle but sure. Abby turned to meet his eyes, a bright smile emerging through the fading tears. Without another word, they rode west together as the new sun climbed higher behind them. A shard of the broken compass glinted in the dawn. They didn't need it anymore. Together, Abby and Kai would find their own true north.